could rob the diamond that was in Mount Incisor.
We got in so much trouble last time. We almost got caught. Don't ever say that. You can't do that.
Okay, guys. So, I have news. So I heard this from my sister's girlfriend's daughter's boss's daughter's girlfriend that there's actually something really huge in Mount Molar that we can take.
What is it?
It's a pearl that's worth $1 billion.
Oh my God! That's exactly what we need. Yay! We can pay off all our loans combined.
And have money left over.
It's 2019. It's 2019. Are you sure?
Okay,
Let's do it.
But that's risky. How are we gonna get in? What are we gonna do?
I'm sure someone knows the process to get up that high.
Okay. Well, guys, we did learn a lot of stuff from hygiene schools, so maybe we can use that knowledge to figure out a way to get into Mount Molar. Okay, well, I'm all in for taking the diamond out of Mount Molar, but what if somebody recognizes us for what we did to Mount Incisor the last time?
Well, that's why I have disguises for each of us.
Wow.
Yeah. I hope this works.
You see that? We have to steal the diamond in that mountain. Just imagine.
There are more than 1 billion years in a diamond. Only now, this eternity is in your hands.
That sounds very easy, but does anybody know how to actually get inside?
Well, if we're going to Mount Molar, why don't we use GV Black's classification to help us find different ways to get in? I know 6 possible ways to get in.
Okay, so class 1, we can enter from the pits and fissure of Mount Molar, or a lingual pit of a Mount Incisor. Not in the picture. Class 2, we can enter from the sides of Mount Molar. Class 3, we can enter like class 2, except it'll be in Mount Incisor only on the sides. Class 4. Class 4, we can enter like how we did for Mount Incisor in class 3, except we can also enter on the incisal edge. That way we can cover more surface areas. 5, we can enter at the mount from any tintular bird. And lastly, class 6, we can enter at the tips of Mount Molar, or just the incisal edges of Mount Incisor.
Okay, that sounds pretty interesting, but who actually knows the way to get inside and the actual steps required to climb onto that big mountain?
I'll take care of that. So I'll give you guys a summary of the area and the process of how we'll make it in. So let's take a look at Mount Molar.
So we know that the mountain has ongoing volcanic activity. It rains whiskey, and it shows sugar a lot in the area.
We know that there are dry rivers near the area that normally go into cooling the mountain. However, we know that the rivers being dry means there's not enough minerals coming in to patch up damage to the volcano. Also, to our advantage, there are natural fauna that we can use to do most of the work for us, such as Streptococcus mutans, which initiates this thing called the Caries process, and Lactobacilli, which progresses the Caries process. We also know that the sugar snow is eaten by these animals who excrete it as acid. So we also know that there are areas that are patched pretty badly up on that mountain surface, and we know that the owner of the mountain does have some security measures, but we'll take care of that when we get to it. Another thing is that the owner also doesn't pay for maintenance and cleaning up the area, so it'll be easier to remain camouflaged in the debris. So after an eruption, protein falls from the sky and sticks to the surface of the mountain and becomes a layer that the nearby fauna, that's called the early colonizers, can latch onto. The most well-known animal, which I mentioned before, called the Streptococcus mutans, stick onto the protein on the surface. Now, as I mentioned before, sugar and other things fall often in this area, which creates a layer called plaque. The Lactococcus mutans use the carbohydrates from the sugar to make energy for growth and proliferation, and through this process, it excretes lactic acid. Lactic acid, with other acids in plaque like butyric acid and propionic acid, will cause damage to the surface of the mountain. As more acid is produced, the nearby pH drops, which decreases the activity of the S mutants and drops their numbers. This allows nearby lactobacilli to attach onto the extracellular polysaccharides of the early colonizers like the Streptococcus mutants. Lactobacilli allows for progression of caries by digesting the fermentable carbohydrates to make even more lactic acid and further dig into the mountain. First of all, we know that the mountain has three parts, from the outside to the inside. They are the enamel, the dentin, and the pulp. It's protected by cementum instead of enamel underground, but we'll get to that later. So what we can see here is that the initial damage looks like a white chalky appearance on the surface of the mountain due to loss of calcium, phosphorus, and ions on the enamel. Wet areas are more porous than healthy enamel, which means the acid can go through and cause damage. There's demineralization below the surface, but if you look at it from the outside, the surface appears intact. The damage progresses in a triangular formation if seen with our X-ray vision. It spreads laterally as it progresses towards the dentin layer. So first, what we can see here is the first stage. It's incipient, which means it's only halfway through the enamel, and then as the caries progresses, it becomes moderate. So now once it reaches the dentin, it spreads along the dentino-enamel junction where the enamel and dentin meet, and this results in another triangle formation in the dentin. So now that it's reached this far, we call it advanced caries, which when it's halfway through the dentin. And finally, when it progresses more than halfway through the dentin, and now that it's that much closer to the pulp, it's severe caries. So at this point, you can probably see it from the outside, from the surface, as an actual big hole in the side of the mountain. Now, the best part of this is that we can just leave this process alone and the owner won't notice until the surface caves into itself, since he tends to leave this property alone. So class 1 incipient interproximal caries extends less than halfway through enamel thickness, and of course is only found in enamel. Class 2 moderate interproximal caries extends more than halfway through enamel but has not yet reached the dentino-enamel junction. Class 3 advanced interproximal caries extends through the enamel, through the DEJ, into dentin but has not gone past halfway through the dentin to the pulp. And finally, in Class 4 severe interproximal caries, it extends more than halfway through the dentin layer, so it's found in both enamel and dentin, and as I previously said, it may appear clinically as cavitation in the tooth.
Okay, so another option to get inside Mount Molar is to use the tunnels on the roof of the mountain, which are best located in the morning. So it's harder to locate these tunnels at night though, because the tips of Mount Molar are dense in the front and back, and we can't see them until the DEJ is involved. So we must be careful if we use these tunnels on the roof of the mountain, because there are 3 different tunnels that we may encounter if we go. One tunnel that we may encounter are shallow tunnels that can only be seen during the day. Do not go through these, okay? I have pictures of the other 2 tunnels that we may encounter during the night. Come here. Other tunnels that we may encounter are moderate tunnels. These extend into the dentin, and at night, they appear as a thin, dark line under the enamel at the top of the mountain. We also don't want to go through these tunnels. That's what it looks like. If you guys don't want to use the tunnels on the roof of the mountain, we can use tunnels located at the front and back of Mount Molar. These are difficult to see at night and much better to detect during the day, but the tunnels can be seen as small, circular, and dark at night if we want to try and find them. The tunnels we do want are the deep tunnels, severe tunnels. These are the ones we want to use because they extend through the dentin and can be seen easily at night as a large dark area under the enamel on top of the mountain, like that one.
Also, don't be fooled by attrition. With our X-ray vision, attrition may seem like someone broke through the mountain from the top surface, but failed to get all the way through to the core of the mountain. Abrasion is another fake pathway or tunnel that can trick us, because with our X-ray vision, it can appear like someone tried to hack through the cervical region or the foot of the mountain, but weren't able to get deep enough to reach the treasure.
So one thing we gotta keep in mind is that not all tunnels lead to the diamond. There are tunnel looking paths that don't lead anywhere. These are called cervical burnouts. It usually occurs at the neck of the mountain. The mountain is so big and heavy that the pressure of its weight creates these tunnel looking areas near the ground level. It usually looks like a collar shape on mount anterior. So it usually occurs at the neck of the mountain. The mountain is so big and heavy that the pressure of its weight creates these tunnel looking areas near the ground level. It usually looks like a collar shaped on mount anterior, so that's the one we don't have to worry about. So since this is Mount Molar, we gotta be concerned about the wedge shaped located on the root cone cavity on the mesial and the distal surfaces near the CEJ.
Many mountains on the island are connected through interconnecting tunnels in which we can quickly get to other mountains. If we find the railway buggy, we can easily get to all the tunnel connecting throughout the mountain. The buggy can take us at a much faster rate from one mountain to the other and rock everything.
There will be another easier way to get inside Mount Molar. I heard the last time someone got very close to digging a tunnel and almost made it through. Just when they thought they were going to make it, they got caught. The tunnel then was filled in with heavy rocks and weak cement. If the person who built the tunnel was not very skilled, there's a possibility that we can dig up the same route. All we would have to do is find the gaps in these rocks and squeeze through and dig up the same tunnel. Rumors are that there was an intruder that was caught inside the tunnel and was hatched out without him being pulled out. Okay, let's take a look at secondary caries, also known as recurrent caries, on a radiograph. This type of caries is observed around the edges and under restorations. The common location of secondary caries are the rough or overhanging margins and fractures placed in all locations of the mouth. It may be a result of poor adaptation of a restoration, which allows for marginal leakage, or it may be due to inadequate extension of the restoration. In addition, caries may remain if there has not been a complete removal of the original lesion, which later may appear as a recurrent caries. So the next way to get inside would be to just dig a hole underground and hit the roots and dig a tunnel up from here and come up. There's no need to tackle the mountain from up top because, as we know, this is much harder surface than down here. The only thing we need to dig through is cementum. So the only thing we should dig through is the yellow part here, cementum, and dentin, which is the purple outline. And this way, there's less hassle of breaking down the outside enamel, which is the hardest part. If we work at this pace underground, we will not be seen by the guards who are inside the mountain, and we can work at a much rapid pace. This pace we will call rapid progression. The guards in the mountain will not even know that we're digging a tunnel under them, and the core of the mountain is much closer than coming from up top. There are less barriers present since enamel, as we discussed earlier, is not an issue. Also, the mountain is quite old because this is a Mount Molar, therefore it shouldn't be too hard to break in.
Root caries is a translucency found on the roots of teeth involving the cementum. Usually it's found on older individuals with prominent recession and periodontitis. Many times, root caries can be confused with cervical burnout. Cervical burnout is an apparent radiolucency found just below the cementum-enamel junction on the root due to an anatomical variation. It can also be due to a gap between enamel and bone covering the roots. This way, it can mimic root caries. On posterior teeth, this radiolucency usually disappears when another film of the region is examined. Caries does not occur on the root of a tooth unless there is a loss of alveolar bone and gingival tissue due to recession or periodontitis. Due to loss of proximal root surface, it allows for more X-ray rays to pass through this area, which results in a more radiolucent appearance on the radiograph. X-rays directed at a different angle usually pass through more tooth structure and the radiolucency disappears.
Well, that's all, folks.